My name is Steve Nelson, and I'm the IS manager slash computer services librarian slash de facto web manager, adjunct assistant professor of law, all that other stuff at Marquette University Law School. And with me is Brad Nye, and Brad is an academic computer consultant who works for Marquette University, who is assigned to the law school. So Brad doesn't actually work for us, but we work very, very, very closely. Today we're going to talk to you about, for lack of a better word, what I call the Marquette experience. Our experience is derived heavily. I use the word derived. We steal from others freely. Other people's experiences. I've been coming to this conference for a while, and I've been at Marquette for 12 years. And so we've done a lot of things wrong, and we've seen how others have done some things really well, and we've taken those ideas. We're trying to put it together to help you, who may be in a small staff situation, to help you deal with some of the issues that we think we've tackled pretty well. I'm always convinced that there is an easier or better way. Longer and harder doesn't usually bear much fruit. We're going to talk about the nature of the small staff, the unique characteristics. These may be things you may already know, but it's nice to get your feelings about this stuff validated. I'll talk about what we, the collective we, what it is that we do and the responsibilities that we have. I'm going to generalize those services and skills. Every law school thinks they're unique, yet every time we want to do a program, we want to start a new service, the first question is, what is someone else doing? So while we're unique, we also seem to be very much like everyone else. And we're going to share some of our practices and procedures, some of our workflow that we've developed, seem to work, and we'll share those tools with you, and they're pretty simple tools. They're already on your desktop: Microsoft Word, Microsoft Access, and Excel. Who we are. Quick glance at the list of attendees tells me that there's a lot of skill involved. There's a lot of skill present. Law school technology involves all sorts of different types of people. When we look at the titles held, we have computer services librarians, IT managers, academic computer consultants, PC support specialists, systems analysts, electronic services librarians, networking services people, media coordinators, IT specialists, internet developer. The best one so far was Uber Geek, although I'm not particularly fond of that, but I think it describes it pretty well. We probably have all of these hats with us, either here today or they're at the hotel, or when we get back, they're back in our offices, and we're expected to put one or both or five on at the drop of a hat. We'll be called on to be the networking person, and to be the help desk person, and to be the curriculum developer and the web developer within minutes of each other. In most settings, the person in the small staff has the same responsibilities as the people who are working at Cornell or Emory with 30 colleagues. It's just that we all hold multiple jobs at the same time. There is some give and take, but essentially the skills and requirements are the same. In the smaller staff setting, I guess I would hope you would not say it, and I know that we don't hear it, and that's the phrase, "That's not my job, go ask someone else." There's no one else to pass it to. I hand it to Brad, and he hands it right back. And faculty know that, and students know that, and our staff knows that we're the ones who are ultimately responsible for things. In a small staff setting, it's always your job, and if it's not your specific job, it's your job to hook someone up with those resources that are going to accomplish their goals. And we also have a high level of accountability. There's no place for the person in the small staff to hide. We can't say, well, we'll take it back to the committee. There is no committee. There is no collective meeting for the IT staff. There's no one really to blame when things don't work. The good side is, when things do work, the credit is ours. We don't share our credit with or with a staff of 30. Our successes are our own, and our failures are our own. And so we have a higher level of accountability. I think it's a powerful motivator. That accountability factor is undiluted. So we're sort of always in the front lines. So there are 6 layers of bureaucracy to get us through trying to accomplish a single task. So what is it that we do collectively? Well, we're the help desk and application support. We're responsible for training. We're responsible for data recovery. Basically, whatever it takes to get a user working and to keep a user working. This includes making sure they have the right software and they know how to use it. Sorry. Back in the Midwest, people are still in bed, so they'll have to watch the archived webcast of this. This includes making sure that people have the right stuff. They have the right tools. The software works, and the desktop works. And the desktop works the way it's supposed to. We may do formal PowerPoint training with a small group of faculty or a large group of faculty. We will most likely do that one-on-one. So we'll do a formal session, and then the professor or the instructor will grab us, and we'll go to their offices, and we'll show them again how to do that. And that's what we do. Another hat, or set of hats, local area networking and data management. We may be the server administrators. We may be the person who administers the lab, and someone else administers faculty computing. We're the person that they come to when they can't remember their passwords, when they're over quota, when they can't get data off a disk or off some other sort of media. This is not just sort of end users. It could be admissions. It could be career planning. It could be student records. So we also have the data hat that we have to wear. And then there's all that other stuff. Lexis Westlaw. We're using the dedicated lines for traffic for Lexis and Westlaw. We're also using their IP printing. And somehow I am the immediate contact for all of that when campus networking is actually the ones who administer those dedicated lines. And so things get complicated. We have lots of responsibilities. We end up playing the gatekeepers, whether it's FTP gatekeepers or access to software or resources. These are sort of the things that we do. So how do we try to do it better? One thing that we rely on heavily at Marquette, strong interpersonal skills, or we like to think that. We are out there with our customer base, if you will, all the time. And it eases anxiety, and there's lots of interaction. It also pays dividends in terms of forgiveness. I'm a person that they work with, not the guy on the other end of the phone who can't get my file back, or the person who can't change my password right away, or give me remote access. So we have this connection and a connectedness that also grows some level of forgiveness when things are not going well. We need to keep lots of balls in the air, and we need to keep track. We make the rounds, and we write stuff down. No one has enough time. We don't have enough time to accomplish all this stuff that's going to be on our desk when we get back on Monday. Or if you stop in tomorrow on your way back from the airport, like some of us may. But that personal contact goes a long way to create a positive relationship and a positive working environment. So we're going to try to look at several places where at Marquette we've taken control mostly and given up control mostly for a lot of services. We're going to look at some workflow issues and some record-keeping practices. If you read over the Technoids archive from the last year or 2 years or 3 years, there are lots of good solutions to lots of everyday problems available in those archives, and we customize them for our own needs. So we need to maximize your skills and your time. Let go of what you can. One of the sessions I was at earlier was, so the underlying premise was, when you take over the world, I didn't take over the world. Someone gave me the world, and I want to give part of it back. And the parts that I want to give back are, you need to separate what I call real technology from perceived technology. Classroom technology does not require my time. You don't call the technologist to put a TV in a room. You don't call the technologist to reserve a room for a student organization. Why do you call the technologist to set up a laptop? It's a cultural issue. It's something that we struggled with over time. We have what is called a facilities manager. This person is responsible for all the build-out that goes on in the building. She also reserves all the rooms, and she maintains the master room calendars. People will ask her for a television. People will ask her for a TV, for a VCR. They'll ask her for a laptop, and she used to say, "Go ask Steve." So we shorten the cycle a little bit. I sat down with her, and I said, "This is easy stuff. It's not that hard. When it's not working, then a whole bunch of stuff is not working." So now this person, we've got a couple of carts, portable carts, with nice laptop locks. Everything's tethered to these carts. Very portable. We're fortunate. We have wireless, so we're not dragging Ethernet cables around. She can set this stuff up. She can take control of it, and she knows what's available. So if an adjunct says, "I have a class at 4, and another professor says, "I have this going on and that going on," she can say, "We can't do it at the same time," because she's controlling the entire schedule. The advantage to that is, it's not me. I don't have to concern myself with that. And it raises her status a little bit. She now is tech savvy. She's the problem solver. And that benefits everybody, because the breakdown is, the problem goes on in the classroom, they get her, she tries to find me, and then 45 minutes later, as class is winding up, we're getting things taken care of. So get rid of what you can, and I call it the perceived technology. Copiers are not technology. Lighting, power, all of that, although there is a lot of technology behind it, we need to let go of that stuff. And there are other things, I think, like distributing laptops, circulating laptops, developing those sorts of policies that I don't have to own anymore. I can give those up. I also have something called the myth of library technology. We're buying CDs instead of books. So as the IT services manager or the computer services librarian, lots of my time is spent on how do we shelve them? How do we take care of them? What do we do if they're stolen? Those sorts of questions. To me, these aren't technology issues. These are librarian issues. These are circulation issues. These are issues, one, that other schools have taken care of, and if we had a forum more open like Technoids for some of the other things, we would resolve these things more quickly. Things that I care about are, okay, we buy a CD or a DVD instead of a print. Do we expect them to have access inside the building? That's a different thing. That's where I would want to be involved, because we're open to the public. Public can come in and use all our materials. They can't circulate to them. But if we say we're buying this set on CD and we're going to give them access, I have to make accommodations for the public then, either in our network or somewhere, so that they can use those things. The minutia of, well, what do you think we should do? Should we duplicate CDs as they come in so that we have a backup? No, we don't photocopy books when they come in case somebody steals them, or pocket parts or any of that other stuff. So there's what I call the myth of library technology. So we're going to redistribute some responsibility. If you can, outsource. Outsourcing costs money. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. Most cases, when you have it, it seems to come in over the transom somehow. We were very fortunate in that we were able to outsource our web design and hosting. And we've been able to focus our energies on content and workflow. And for us, it's money well spent. Insourcing is passing it off to somebody else who probably ultimately should be responsible for it. The other thing, let the university have some stuff. we do not have a gracious relationship with the university. I have an outstanding ACC from the university, who is their employee. I can honestly say I don't really see eye to eye on any of the policies that they've developed. For me, they don't understand academic computing, and there's no user on the other side of the keyboard. It's all about ownership and acquiring things and getting credit for things. But, that being said, we'll give them some stuff. Email. I don't want to get paged. It's not cost effective at this point for us to maintain our own email service. It helps with branding. Everybody on campus has the same email, similar email address or similar naming conventions. So we let email go. We ran an in-house system, and then we used the campus system, and then we abandoned the in-house. And it's not easy. There's some reliability issues. There's a delay factor that when we add new faculty or add new students, it just takes longer to activate them, to get those accounts, those sorts of things. But it's something we're willing to give up. It's one less thing that we need to do. And with a small staff, you give up what you can. One thing that we didn't push for but came about was we have a university purchasing plan. So we have an automated purchasing system with all of our approved vendors in it. The university sets a standard, a minimum platform for a PC. Honestly, if you could buy below that standard, you'd be buying something used. As soon as they establish a standard, the next chip comes out, and you can't find the one that meets the standard. So everything is just getting better. At one point, I had a lab with 10 machines, 4 different brands, and 6 different video cards. Now I have the choice of 3 vendors, and one of those vendors is CDW. So I can basically buy anything from that's in CDW's catalog. We stick with one brand. We get the 3-year warranty. We're guaranteed some continuity, and there's a price premium that we're paying for that. It's a little bit more expensive, but there is peace of mind, there's ease of installation, and there's a huge install base on campus. So I can call someone else and say, something's wacky with this video card. Have you seen it before? There's a drawback to that. Although they track everything through this system, they're not tracking our licensing. And so that's something that we need to do in-house. If you're in the Microsoft academic program where you may be installing Office 2000 or the 2000 OS, but you're paying for XP, it's the magic that we do. They can't tell us what I bought 2 years ago. They can't say, oh, well, you actually bought Office XP 2 years ago, but we let you install 2000. You're free to move on. So we have to keep track of our own licensing. We found a vendor, though, for software who does a great job for us. So that's something. The last thing that we give to the university or that they put forth, and we semi-embrace it, is help desk. So all the trouble ticketing, this is mostly for Brad's benefit because as a university employee, it's used as an evaluation tool. It's used, how busy are you? But it also, we use it to track all those things that go back to the manufacturer. It keeps Brad current. Some of the other departments, they've had the Memorial Library staff uses it to track requests that they make to the campus. So the help desk has been a benefit. We don't maintain a local help desk or call center. It's clunky. Over time, I think it's going to work a lot better. Students tend to staff the desk, and my experience has been grown-ups read the email. So I send email to helpdesk@marquette.edu, and that's what the supervisors read. So when I have questions, rather than calling the help desk and saying, gee, I think we're having a network problem. Well, it works for me. I send a message to the email at the help desk, and a help desk supervisor. I would hope that I might have a little bit more credibility than some of the other people, but the help desk supervisor usually gets back to me right away. We've been able to get them to, we use MAC address authentication, and registration as part of our wireless scheme, and the university and the help desk are the ones who manage that service. And once they brought the help desk on board, it's been very fast and very efficient. I can send them an email, and usually within an hour, all my MAC addresses are registered and my users are ready to go. That used to be a day process, 24-hour turnaround. Turn it over to Brad.
It's kind of funny, as I was standing here, I was thinking of, and strangely enough, no one asked us or asked me this time, or told me this time, but every time Steve and I, this gives you an idea just how small the staff we are, and apparently how critical we are to the law school. Every time Steve and I are going out to lunch, they see us going out to lunch. If they even see us standing together talking in the hallway, they say, "Are you sure you two guys should be together at the same time? Because if something's happened to both of you, what are we going to do?" I can't imagine what they thought when we took the same flight out here, but no one said anything this time. At any rate, as Steve said, my name is Brad Nye. I am the academic computer consultant for the law school. I am a university employee. I work for IT services directly, but I am permanently stationed in the law school as their liaison. What I do is I have a rather unique position in that I try to take what ITS or IT services wants as their vision, and then I take what the law school needs, and I try to come to some sort of an agreement between the two. And it can be very interesting sometimes because one group doesn't always necessarily want to do what the other group wants to do, but generally the idea is to find some sort of happy medium between the two. But there are a few things that are solely, what I do is solely and strictly condensed just for the law school. IT services in general did not do this part when I started. I did this of my own initiative. Because when I started, I was asked by the person who basically oversaw the budgetary process. That person asked me, he said, what we'd like to know is we'd like to know how many PCs we're going to get in this next fiscal year. And I said, not a problem. I can figure this out for you. We can figure this all out. I figure I will go right to the inventory. So I went back to my desk. This was maybe 1 or 2 weeks into my job. My desk still looked a bit like a warehouse at the time. So the thing I looked for was an inventory. I found an inventory. The inventory had been last updated approximately 6 months to 1 year before, and had an enormous amount of incomplete information. So I realized that I had to start over. So when you're looking for, trying to set up budgetary processes, you really need an inventory, definitely an inventory. And so what I always say is, have a, what happened here? Went backwards. Sorry about that. Take control even when you do not have one. Because I had to start the inventory completely over, I also use this adage, it's a dirty job, but someone has to do it. And I mean that both figuratively and literally, because this was in the days before desktop management tools were really big. And so I remember many a day crawling under desks, behind desks, and I'm sure many of you may know that many of the desks are not necessarily computer friendly. And I saw dust bunnies there that made me want to scream. But at any rate, I crunched through it. It took probably, I would say, a good 3 months to really sit down and just crank out the whole inventory. So I actually did. I actually started an inventory. Did it again. I started an inventory, and actually I'll show you what the inventory I use. Now, mind you, this is using Microsoft Access. This was before desktop management tools. But I just want to give you an idea of, it's one of these here, I think it's this one right here. This is an example of what I did. And essentially what I did was I started out with a law system number. Every PC that I touched got a number. Now some of them already had numbers, The numbers were in the back of the PC. It didn't do me any good with them in the back of the PC. So as a standard, I started putting stickers on the front. And I said, who's the user, where's its location, CPU, brand, serial number, very, very important for a couple of reasons. One is it has to be recorded because even with most desktop management tools, from what I've seen, they don't necessarily record this kind of information, so you have to have it. Our primary vendor requires this serial number when we have to ask for warranty work or something like that. Furthermore, our primary vendor puts the sticker on the back. Again, I don't want to have to go behind the machine more than once, so I had to put that on there. Asset tags, this is something that the university uses to track information about the individual pieces, so we have several different tracking mechanisms. IP addresses, we are now actually on DHCP, so this is primarily blank. However, we do have some, locally assigned IPs for certain instances. RAM, this is very helpful when finding out from the user if my machine is slow. I quickly take a look to see exactly where their RAM is, and that usually is one of the things. Warranty expiration dates, very, very important. At least I know when I call the vendor, I will then know that the thing is under warranty, and if they tell me otherwise, I can say, well, no, my records show this. And then what I have towards the side here is all of the software and things of that nature. And basically, it's primarily the main software that we use, whether you have it, what you have, what version you have. I do have to do some updating here, as you can see. Another thing that I do, it's not quite as important as it used to be, because, like it or not, we still have a few Windows 95 machines, but not many. And something I learned from long ago was that if a machine died, if a hard drive died or something, and you had to put the operating system back together, and you couldn't quite find that certificate right away, or if you had the certificate, it was buried in a pile of them, 50 deep or something like that, but you didn't really mark it down correctly. This is the best way I could find out to put a machine back together, because where would you find where your OEM was for your operating system? I also did this for the network cards and video cards, because also that was usually specific software that I had to know which CD to pull from and that sort of thing. Again, today that's not as big a deal as it used to be because everything's integrated. But it's been a very helpful tool. The university is actually looking at, and I am actually wearing a shirt from the vendor, at Metopia, which is a desktop management tool, which does many of the things that I've done manually. And so that's something that's being slowly implemented through the university. So when that becomes the widespread tool, this will probably be retired in favor of that. And that will actually give me even more information about the machinery, processor speed and things like that, which I do not take into account right now. But the purchasing, the inventory is a godsend. I mean, it's really helped me through a lot of stuff in this particular case. All right. Yes.
How do you keep it up to date?
Well, I literally will go on. Well, I will go on that a little bit later, but basically what I do is I do a lot of Postit notes when I'm running around trying to, right now, for example, I am in the process, we have just moved to a new email system, and I'm in the process of moving us to Microsoft Exchange using Microsoft Outlook. And so what I do is by the month, I basically write down who has gotten it, on a piece of paper, and then when I come back to my desk, I go back to here, back to my inventory, and then I make the marks in it as I go. When I do machine setups, it's done right as I do the machine setups. I mean, I literally have the inventory right there, the information goes down as I do it, and it's a done deal. Sometimes things get lost, I must admit. In fact, I think I have to go through the inventory again because, which pains me in some ways. But I'd like to say that it is 90 to 95% correct. I'll say that.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
If you want to help with that, maintaining and having an up-to-date information, put the same information in each of the computer description.
Okay.
That way.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Then even if you lose the paper sheet or your database,
right,
you can go to the machine, or whenever you do some upgrade on individual machine, just it will take action on 2 minutes.
Okay.
Put it there, then you will have an update information on the computer itself.
Sure. Good idea. Excellent. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I use something basically interacts with that, but I also track it by MAC address. I also call machines so I put like what version of the image. But so sometimes if you sort of lose or you don't get back to something, I mean the MAC address is the one thing that you need for the machine. So if you've got that somewhere in that database, you can always put back to the machine. Somebody have to lose the accidentally got moved down.
True.
It's also good if you network that just something refers back to the MAC address.
Right.
Where is this machine?
Sure. For me, the MAC address, because they're so cryptic, I use them to some extent. What I found, what happens for me is because I get to know the PCs so well, because I'm at certain PCs almost all the time, I almost know by the LS number that I create. I almost know. I can see if I see something out on the server that says this one, I know exactly who it is. I mean, you get used to it. It's almost like having the same students in the same place. You just know they're going to ask the same question every single time. But I do understand what you're saying, and that is a very good point. The interesting thing is, though, yeah, it is time consuming. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, keeping up an inventory is grunt work. There's no doubt about it. But it does pay off in the long run, especially, too, when central IT says, we want an inventory of everything you have. Give it to us now. I can do it. I have some colleagues who don't have that even, going for them, unfortunately. Yes?
Does your, I don't know what department it is, but once a year they give us new asset tags and we have to go and tag all the equipment. Do you have to do that?
Well, interesting you bring that up. What they used to do is our purchasing department would come around about every 2 years with this long ream of paper with all these asset tags. And then they would ask, take us to every room, and we have to match all these up. I said, no, we will not do that. For a couple of reasons. One was, I thought it was a waste of everyone's time to have to do this, my time, their time, to go through every room. The second thing was, I respect the professor's privacy. I would not want someone who I did not know walking into my office, looking at my machine. What are they doing? Who are they? That sort of thing. So I would have to obviously go with them. So what I did is I said, just give me all the tags. We'll line them all up. And then as the machines come in and as I work on them, or if I have to do maintenance or junk them or whatever, I'll put the tag on them at that time. And that's how we do it now. In fact, now what they do is every time we get machines that are what are called a capital purchase, which require the asset tag, they will send me about every couple of months a bunch of tags with the requisite serial numbers for the PCs or laptops.
The capital purchase threshold is $1,000.
Yes.
We've made conscious decisions to stay under $1,000 to avoid the headache. But now we've also got the policy of CERW on every desk to empower people to do their own backups. And that just bumped us like $1,005. So we're coming down to 30 people.
And may or may not give them a monitor in the process. But yes, that's how we handle the asset tag situation. So it works actually pretty well. Although I do have quite a few asset tags which don't have homes yet, but we'll get to them eventually, I'm sure. The other thing, of course, is once you've got the inventory down, you've got, of course, the actual buying of the machinery. Now, when I started at the law school at Marquette, there were multiple vendors, and I did not personally like that. I like a bit of consistency. So my objective was to lead that down to one vendor and one vendor only. And it has taken a little over 3 years, but now we are actually a one vendor shop for all of our desktops. And the reason I picked this vendor and the reason I go with this is because what I do is first of all, they're a local shop. And a local shop is very, very nice to have because if you need a part, our parts, if we have, a dead video card on certain machines or NIC card or motherboard, 24 hours or less in some cases, we will have the replacement part. And second of all, what I do is I cultivate a really good working relationship with the techs there. I mean, I know the techs. I know at least 3 of the techs by first name. I know, they know me. So when I call, we can get right to business and we can get things figured out and we can get the replacement done, because the whole idea is that we want quick turnaround time so that our users are not suffering, at least not long in most cases. But I also have a backup on that as well. If a machine goes down, I have what I call hot spares. And so if a machine goes down on a professor or a staff member, and they need to get back up online as fast as possible, and they don't, they need things from their server, which isn't a big deal, not necessarily from the hard drive, I will take out their other machine, put in a swapped machine, has just the basics on. They can be up and running within 15 minutes, and we can go from there. And then we get the machine fixed, and then we go on from there. So the other thing too is that with the purchases, we have essentially 2 buyers in our department, and those buyers are the ones that handle technology purchases. If anything comes to them as far as technology buys, particularly PCs or laptops, they talk to myself or Steve first to make sure that this is, that it's in line with what we want, because I'm looking for standardization. And while desktops are pre-standardized, laptops are something completely different. However, I've been trying to standardize them as well as much as possible, and part of my work is to convince those individuals who want laptops to go this route, and then I give the pros and cons. I will give the cons about any machinery, because all machinery has that. So anyway, so we got the purchasing in that respect down. Then what we had to do was, as I had said before, the professor who was in charge of all this said, we want to know who's going to be getting a machine. So what we do is we identify the tendencies or cycles for how we do things. And the way we do things at Marquette Law School is that we have every year 1/3 of all the machines are upgraded. So we have a 3-year cycle. Our machines are online, or our machines are at a faculty or staff member's desk for 3 years, and then they're taken off and used elsewhere. They're bumped down, as the case may be. And the reason we do this is because we want to make sure that they're under full warranty, and most of the full warranties are 3 years. So that way we know if anything goes wrong, we can get it replaced. I don't have to mess around with any kind of paperwork or any kind of buying or payment of parts or anything like that. So we do it on the 1/3 a year schedule. And I actually have, I think it's this one. Yes, this is actually the scheme, the purchase scheme that we use. And as you can see, those individuals who are at the very top are those who are going to be next in line to get new machines. Now you'll notice that some of them are a little bit older than 3 years, and that's because there was a situation where these users came in sort of in the middle of the semester when we didn't have them. We couldn't get them a machine at the time. They were not part of the process yet, so we had to give them what we had. But come July 1, this whole thing will shift again. And we have it, for the faculty, we split it by staff, the students for the school, miscellaneous, and then the library is also represented as well.
That information isn't in your inventory database?
Well, it's in there in a different form, essentially, because it's what the last the person who wanted this information, this is how he wanted it represented. So I did it that way. I mean, normally I would go by warranty expiration date, but he wanted it by manufacture date. So I had to come up with that. Plus, he also wanted them split up. I mean, I could have done that through the inventory, yes. But at the time, because it was necessary and I had to do it very quickly, I just did a quick run. It wasn't that hard, actually.
And then the requester wants it in Excel.
And the request, yes, that's true, too. That's true. Yeah. So, yes.
Who makes the decision of, is it one person and one person in terms of the equipment that's first purchased? In other words, is this a departmental decision or this is an IT decision?
In this case, this is a departmental decision of what we purchase. We have at this time, we have full control of our purchasing power, I guess guess you could say. I mean,
So you make the decision for the department to what equipment they get, or they?
Yes, within the constraints of the policy of ITS, as far as we have only 5 vendors we can choose from. We have only 5 approved vendors. The group that I work with is one of the approved vendors. So yes, I guess yes and no to that question. I mean, there are constraints, but there's a lot of latitude within those constraints.
I think it might be more your question is that with the 3-year cycle, there's not much decision making being done at the departmental level. What we ask for is in March, before the fall semester begins, what changes do you anticipate? Visitors, new faculty, departures, so that we can accommodate those. Expanded services, career planning wants to open up, resume centers. We ask that they let us know as we start to prepare that budget. But then once they're on the system, every 3 years they get a new machine, and it makes it a lot easier to know. It takes somebody else is getting something I don't have feeling out of the equation because it's just standardized.
Yeah, we do not. I mean, we want to be fair. We want to be fair to everyone, regardless of position, because the technology isn't such for what we do. The technology really, just because you get one person has a 1.8 megahertz processor, the other person has 2.2 or something like that, there's not a lot of change there. And so, but we want to be consistent, and it does ease anxieties amongst people if they know that, okay, I know I'm on the list. That's great. They don't, rivalries, jealousies do not necessarily manifest themselves, which is nice. And I like to be, fair that way. I think it's the best way to handle this sort of thing. Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions. One, in the previous session in this room, there were questions about whether you give a PC or laptop to an individual prop, right? You allocate a certain amount of money in the 3-year cycle. And the second question is, how do you decide, like maybe you might have answered that from partly, how do you decide who gets first? Do you give priority to some of the support staff who work on most of the props documents, or you give priority to props who want it first?
Well, I'll answer the second question. I'll let Steve answer the first one, but I'll answer the second one first real quick. When I get a batch of machines in, the way I handle as far as who gets what first, I actually look at whose machine who's going to be replaced, whose machines are giving them problems. Because usually what happens is after a certain amount of time, it could be around 3 years, some machines tend to get a little squirrely. And so it doesn't matter if they're a professor, it doesn't matter if they're the dean, it doesn't matter if they're the complex secretary. Whoever has actual issues, be they software or hardware with the machines, they will get bumped to the top of the list, and they will get the machine first amongst that group that is purchased. Now, there was at least one instance where we had to, for some of our librarians, we had a new piece of equipment or a new piece of software coming in that needed very, very powerful RAM at this time. This was several years ago. So we had a group of them. They were taken out of the regular cycle and given upgraded machines because it was based on need, but only on need, not because there was any special, they weren't favored or anything of that nature. So.
Regarding the first question, we budget, and it's not luxurious, but it's basically what we spend anyway. And we try to build a contingency in if a faculty member wants to opt for a laptop instead of a desktop. We try to build that in, so $500 or $600 for the docking station or the core replicator, whatever that is. We don't give staff that option. If faculty want a laptop in addition to a desktop, they have professional development funds. And from the dean on down, if that's what they want, they're using their own discretionary funds to purchase that. So we don't have to worry about the professor who's saying, I'm going to be a visitor at this place, I'm going to be doing lots of research, I need a laptop for a year. You say, well, you can swap your desktop when it comes up next, or dip into your development funds and take one.
But when you allow that, then it is very difficult to maintain consistency with the make and model.
Well, for desktop, but I'm working towards a consistency with laptop as well. So
Yeah, but when you allow the prof to buy a laptop, a second laptop other than the PC on their office, then because they're spending a whole amount, they have the right to use whatever they like.
Well, they're limited to the same vendors.
Yes.
We are. And over time, we developed enough of a consulting relationship that there are very few, there's one actually, who just goes and gets what he wants. And otherwise, they will come to us and they'll say, I'm going to be visiting and I'm going to be working here. What do you recommend? And
right.
then we can say, we use this model of the library to circulate. They're very durable. They weigh a ton. We use this one with Professor X, very portable but fragile. Where do you think you're going to be?
Right.
How your budget works. Who's the budget person?
It's collaborative.
Okay, but where does the funding, you guys actually own the machines, not central IT? Who owns them?
Well,
The law school.
It's not a
Turn that camera off. Through the law school's financial arrangement with the university, we have some degree of autonomy in our selections. For other departments, for example, the main library, engineering, they have that same issue in that they are making decisions for purchases and they are responsible for paying for them somehow. It comes out of engineering's budget or it comes out of the law's budget. They belong to the university, but we have some independence. And there's actually an issue that exploded in the last few weeks where the university was establishing a new standard at the end of our fiscal year and told us this is the new standard. We don't know who the vendor is. We don't know when they'll take delivery, but we want to pool our purchases to improve our buying power. And we had to formally ask to be removed from that because we don't know what the heck these things are going to look like. We don't know, are they going to get shipped to some central storage thing instead of coming to our loading dock? And we had to worry about seasonal purchases. I can't get machines in during exams because I'm not going to take a professor's machine. So, it's university dollars. It's all their money. It's their asset tag. It's all that stuff. But it comes from our allocation of the budget. And the way that we got there was from going from zero to starting a conversation that says, we're buying new machines, X number of machines every year. We seem to have discovered an effective 3-year life cycle to these machines before faculty are up in arms or administrators are up in arms about this machine doesn't do my job, doesn't work for me. And so by starting that conversation, and I think that throws out the inventory, saying you know your purchasing patterns, you can start to say, whether we budget for it or not, we replace a third of our machines. We can expect to spend X number of dollars for X number of machines next year because that's the pattern. That's the way it happens. Whether they give you the money or not, that's another issue.
But laptops are the wild card there, right? Because do you consider them a 3-year cycle? And if you get, like in my case, I get a number, call it $50,000 to buy computers, and I try to do it 25%, 4 years. But when you start putting laptops in there, it completely changes because they're more expensive.
Yeah.
I can't buy this way.
In one way, we're fortunate in that we're benefiting from the dropping price on desktops, because by the time we go to spend July's money, we'll spend a little bit in July, but we'll really spend a lot in December. Of the money that we'll get July 1st, the price will have dropped and we would have budgeted for a higher price. We actually find that our laptops are coming in with a few $100s of our desktop prices. And that's just been the nature. That may be ending this year, I don't know. But it hasn't been that upsetting. Prior to building in a contingency, we asked the professors to make up the difference out of their professional development funds. So we put a lot back on the professor. It's not a toy. You're spending your money. You could be at CALI. Instead, they're saying, okay, I'll take the $300 and put it towards the desktop.
And you consider it also a 3-year cycle on your laptops?
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one quick question.
Yes.
Have you ever thought of leasing the computers instead of buying it?
There was at one time, if I remember correctly, about a year ago or so, where campus IT was looking at the leasing prospect, and that came to no conclusive ends. I'm not sure that. In fact, I know I would not necessarily be much into a leasing program myself because, there's a lot of other contingencies put on this, and you buy it, you own it, you deal with it. You're on your schedule then, not on the leasor's schedule for replacement upgrades, whatever the case may be. I mean, there's pros and cons, but it's not really something I would necessarily look into. Yes, sir.
Just to comment on the leasing thing, in the last meeting, I mentioned that we're switching from a 3-year lease to a 4-year lease. We pay about $100 for the term of the lease premium over the purchase price, so there's not a huge price difference. One of the nice things is we have a 4-year warranty, and we also have a $1 buyout option at the end. So our intention at this point is, after the 4 years, we'll buy out some of the machines to send down to the basement journals, or for student organizations or things like that. But one of the nice things about that is we're part of a campus program doing the leasing. And earlier you were talking about swapping machines, who gets them first. We actually sort of like a hit squad thing. We're all going to main campus, and we'll all converge on the English department. And then one day we'll swap out all their computers. A few months later, we'll all come over to the law school, and one day we'll swap out 20 computers. And so we have no pecking order anymore at the law school for computers. It's just, when's my computer going to replace? I look it up, your lease expires in August, you're getting a new computer in August. And there's no fighting over who gets what first. And it's that whole thing. They pay the difference on an annual basis.
Right. Okay. All right, we are getting a little short on time, so I am, as Steve suggested, flying through, although I will not fly through this last part. Talk about managing time. And just a few things, and we actually touched upon several of these issues already, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on them. But as far as managing my time, we talked about seasonal purchases. And as I had said before, that every year we buy 1/3 of all the PCs to be replaced out. What we do is, of that third, we split those into 2 separate purchases, one in the fall, one in the spring. So we actually control, and we set the schedule of exactly when we're going to buy these units, and I try to have them purchased, figuring in for lead time and manufacture time for them to get to us, when will be a non-busy time of the semester that I can sit down and work on them and crank through them. Because we're talking about 20 machines, give or take, every semester that we do this. Like for for this fall semester coming up, our new fiscal year begins July 1. So very shortly after July 1, I'm going to actually be getting the machines, and I hope, knock on wood, they come in before the semester begins, because once the semester begins, and for about 3 or 4 weeks after that, all bets are off. Everything is then focused on faculty and students and getting everybody back in line. One other thing, this is kind of getting away from the buying portion. It's something that Steve and I call a 15-minute rule. And essentially what that is if the user comes to us and it's not a mission-critical situation, I mean, we're saying, the server is not down, or if it's not a situation where a professor has notes that they accidentally deleted them, they need them back, they need them off backup tape immediately. But we're talking things like issues with a Word document that they're working on but they can't figure it out. We will discuss it with them, and then we will think about it for about 15 minutes, trying to figure out if we can come up with a reasonable solution. If for some reason we don't, we say, we'll have to think about this, we'll have to, look into this, research it, web, whatever the case may be, and we'll get back to you. But we don't want to spend, a half an hour trying to figure out a problem why someone's formatting doesn't work when when you've got many other things to do. So you really want to kind of limit yourself to a 15-minute interval. At least we do, or about 15 minutes. Sometimes some of the things get so interesting, you're there for an hour and you didn't even realize it. But we do try to stick to that rule if at all possible. One other thing is home computer support. This has been this can be a very, very sticky situation. And as Steve is gesturing, yes, that is correct. We do not do home user support for a myriad of reasons. We've got you've got warranty issues, you've got liability issues, you name it. The only things that we actually handle is, Steve was saying before, that some professors buy machines for home use using Marquette development funds. So technically Marquette owns those machines. If they have problems with them at home, we will work on them. However, they have to bring in the machine, be it a laptop, be it the desktop. All they have to bring in is the box, but we cannot legally go out to the person's home to work on that machine. So that's how we run that. So, and very, very quickly, did you want to run this one, Steve? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
Just try to land the plane here in the last couple of minutes. You need to develop reasonable expectations for yourselves as you're managing your own time and what it is that you're expected to do. Just because the professor goes out and buys software X, to run his hockey league from his desk, that doesn't mean that you need to go out and become the expert in that. So you need to know yourself, what is it that I can do, what is it that I can't do, and defer to someone else's expertise if it's available. I think we already hit on this with the William and Mary rule. Your users need reasonable expectations. Your lease expires in August of 2004. You're getting a new machine, that's what's happening. So we try to communicate with them so that they know when they're going to be getting something, especially if it's a new machine rollout, if it's going to be training. We try to keep them up to date with what they can expect from us. And believe it or not, they're very forgiving when things might not come together the way we'd like to. So you need to create a culture of open communication and reasonable expectations. Maximize your skills and expertise. You're already doing that. You're coming to CALI. You're reading lists. You're on the web. You've got the colleagues. You probably have one or two more today or from this weekend than you may have had before you got here. Get the training when you can. If you don't have a formalized training thing, this might be, for those of you who are OCLC schools, is there anybody whose library's not in OCLC? OCLC had this incredible plan where for $100 you could take basically everything through the MCSE program online. So there are training opportunities that maybe the cataloging librarian knows about that they haven't shared with you. So there's some real cost-effective ones also. Yeah. We've been there. Here we are. Brad's email address, my email address. Question? I can say this because he's probably watching the webcast. When I say cultivate those relationships, I was very fortunate 2.5 years ago to get an outstanding work study student. Just an outstanding one. And I can ask him to do stuff, and he'll fix it. I'll say, wow, Kyle, thanks for doing that. And he'll go, it's what I do. They're not there. They're not all there. I was able to turn him into a limited term employee, and his term expires June 30th. So I'll be on that suicide hotline July 1st. But a very talented, dependable, faithful student. Kyle. Yeah, man.
One quick question. I'm pretty impressed with the relationship between the university and the law school, which is something that, I think for the most part we all wish we had or are working towards. I know we're out of time, but can you just speak briefly to any of your main issues that you've had to overcome to keep some continuity between the university and the law school?
I think that
the hardest one is that, and I'll just put words in Brad's mouth, is that IT services with their academic computer consultant program is embedding their employees into academic departments. And what they didn't expect is that those employees are going to come back to main IT and say, these are the needs of this department. And so that's the hardest thing, is to get them to respect that departments have needs other than, AS400 or whatever they're running. And that has taken time. That has been 3 years, and that's ours.
Is that put you in a difficult situation then, Brad? Because that could get really touchy if you're trying to have people but your supervisor is telling you the way we're going to do it.
Well, that's where diplomacy becomes a big factor. And again, like I said, I mentioned earlier, is that you have to weigh the two sides. You just do, and you have to come out. You're not going to get necessarily a total winner all the time, especially if you're seeing that eye to eye on things. So I have to really be careful of that. Okay, I know this, they need this, I know they want to do this. Where do we find it? You just work with it. That's really what you do.
Just a real quick, I understand Emily and Mary. We have a liaison for everything, right? 5 or 6 of us would be embedded in the department. And it's really been a really wonderful thing. I mean, in some cases, you can make that kind of one person. And we really get one of these really tight spots. And I really sat in meetings with campus IT directors and said, from the law school perspective, I said, my law school has, you guys need to do this. And I'll say, but from the IT perspective, don't let them do that. You sort of get more actively on one side against the other. You sort of have to, but it's a lot better when we have somebody that's an intermediary because we can understand both sides. And it's not as contentious as it might be. They can get better solutions.
Thank you.